Last year, I waited way too long to order a bullet journal and everything was sold out, so I ordered something random on Amazon and I loved it so much I ordered the same one again this year. So this journal we're going to use today in our bullet journal setup is a Primrosia brand bullet journal. It has watercolor paper, which we are going to make the absolute most of today because, you know, that hummingbird on the cover really inspired me, and so we're doing a whole like hummingbird setup. So if you are here for something like simple and neutral, you're in the wrong spot, but we're gonna have some fun. Here's some of the things that we are gonna be using in this bullet journal setup. Love those Pentel brush sign pen, I think is what they're called. They come in a whole pack. I'll link them down below. I'll link everything I can down below, by the way. These are the Zebra brush metallic pens. Actually didn't end up using those a lot, so I probably should have film this at the end once I knew what I was going to be using. I do use those fine liners quite a bit, and yeah, I didn't use any gold. That's weird. Usually I always have gold in my setups. I did use this watercolor quite a bit though, so we're gonna have some fun. If we've never met, hi, I'm Becca, as I'm about to write here on this nameplate. I am a full-time elementary music teacher and side hustler extraordinaire. So I have lots of things going on. I have online shops, I have YouTube channels, yes, with an S, and I keep all those things straight here in my bullet journal. This is not a strictly bullet journal channel, but we talk a lot about planning and side hustles and organizing and just really trying to get life together and enjoy life even when you're super busy. So for me, a large part of that is my bullet journal. This is where I goal set, this is where I plan, and without it I would be really lost. So if those things are things that appeal to you, then definitely hit that subscribe button down below, and if not, well, then I hope you enjoy this setup. I did sketch things out ahead of time, which is good because you'll see towards the end, there's some pages I did not sketch out ahead of time, and I definitely should have because I made a lot of mistakes in this one. Yowza, it got pretty rough at some points. Actually, I cut some parts out because I was like, you know what? They don't need to see that. But here we are on the cover page. This is a purely indulgent, just for fun page that you could completely skip. But here I'm just having fun kind of establishing the theme of my bullet journal and just really enjoying. Last year I spent a lot of time hanging out outside, taking my dog on walks, but also just hanging out like on the back porch, and we planted these purple flowers. They're called Mexican petunias. I don't know if that's their real name or just what we call them, but they go insane. Like purple flowers every day. Their blooms only last 24 hours, but it is beautiful. And last year we had a ton of yellow butterflies and a ton of hummingbirds that would come and hang out at these purple flowers. And I just became like obsessed, just hanging out with my coffee, watching, you know, all the pollinators come in to hang out at my purple flowers. So that's pretty much what inspired this, in combination with the fact that there is a hummingbird on the front. And then it ended up being kind of a nice tribute because even though I got this bullet journal and decided on this theme over a month ago, my mother-in-law died a few weeks ago, and she loved hummingbirds. She always had hummingbird feeders outside. They would come up and she'd say, "Oh, hummy." So it just kind of ended up being like a little bit of a sweet thing as well. But that's not why I chose this, just, you know, for information. Now, hummingbirds don't really look like this, but I figured it's my bullet journal, so I can make them whatever color I want. So we're doing like a teal and purple and green, and I'll keep that teal, purple, green, and like peachy color going throughout the whole setup. And yeah, just having a good time. So here I'm just kind of coloring in. I do find, even though this is watercolor paper, it's not super thick like the watercolor paper that I buy to like paint watercolor, which I usually do better than these quick little sketches that we're going to do here in this bullet journal. So I do try to do a little bit less water, a little bit more pigment is a little bit happier. And I find anywhere that you need just like a little bit more, if you just go over with pretty much the same color, then that works pretty well. This set of watercolors is Koi or Kai, something like that. I just got it at Michael's, but it works pretty well. It's definitely better than like the cheap stuff I was using before, but it's not super nice. It's kind of like a nice happy middle. So I'll link it down below if you are looking for just like a good set of watercolors, and the pigment is really good. I would say if you're using watercolor, not to use the cheap stuff. In previous years, I used that like $5 Michaels brand watercolor, and it will transfer. So especially if you're writing on the back of the pages, you'll get like random watercolor transfer on the other pages. So just a little heads up that I would not do that. Here I'm just tracing out these letters with my Tombow black marker. This is the only Tombow we're going to use in the setup. I definitely could have used the brush sign pens instead, but I don't know. This is what I grabbed, and so this is what we're using. And I'm just going over these numbers. I wanted something like big and bold to kind of almost contrast the like lightness of the hummingbird. I didn't base this on any font. I know a lot of people will go and look at like fonts, and that's how they come up with their situations, and I did not do that, but here we are. Anyway, I do recommend, again, sketching things out so that you don't, totally mess them up, because otherwise these would have been super, super wonky. I'm adding a border with this peach shade of pen so that I get that peach on the paper, and then we're about to head over to the next one after I, let this dry, of course. It was kind of good actually, because the room I was doing this in was a complete disaster, because it's where I wrapped all the presents during Christmas. So I would, cut down boxes and clean up as I was waiting for things to dry. I'm cutting around the edge of this flower leaf situation over here on the right, because I'm gonna make this a bit of a Dutch door. Here I'm just testing the colors and making sure everything is dry, and I'm gonna flip it over to the next page. So this is a page I did in my last bullet journal, and I loved it. I called it my like focus page. I don't really know if it's a real thing, but it's what we're doing here, and it's basically just like an inspirational page with some quotes and some like words and pictures and just things to like really help hopefully ground me a bit and kind of keep me on the right track. So last year my whole thing was about trying to be more focused and less all over the place, and also working on having a better balance between like work and all my side hustles and having fun, enjoying life, that kind of stuff. So that was the kind of stuff that I put on this page. Quotes about using your time well, and the word focus and balance and things like that. So here I'm doing kind of a similar thing. I don't finish it yet because I'm not 1,000% sure what my plans are for next year yet. So I'm still just trying to like work things out. But I know there's a couple of things. So I put "there's nowhere to go but up," which is a quote from Mary Poppins, which I love. And then over here I'm just drawing some more of those little purple flowers. These are like super, super simple little sketches. They're not anything super fancy. And in this one, I'm going to add the yellow butterflies instead of the hummingbird. Although, spoiler alert, there's going to be a hummingbird soon. I would love to know, by the way, if you have any like favorite bullet journal accounts that you follow. There's a few different YouTubers I follow, but I really prefer this like painting kind of version, and I feel like all the people I follow are more like collage-y style, which is fine, but I like the paint a lot, and my favorite one actually is not doing bullet journaling anymore. So if you know especially any people who do like a lot of paints and drawing and stuff like that in their bullet journal, leave them down in the comments for me so that I can check them out, because I'm looking for some new people. Down there at the bottom, I wrote a quote. I don't know where I found this, somewhere on Pinterest, but it said, "God spoke to me today in flowers, and I, who was waiting on words, almost missed the conversation." That's something that really stands out for me. I know not everyone, is a Christian or feels all of those things, but last year I felt like there were a lot of, kind of just God speaking to me in the little things, and so that quote just really hit home with me, and so I put it here with the flowers and the butterflies, because that was something I just remember thinking like, how amazing it was with all these butterflies, like one day in particular. Then I decided we needed a hummingbird. Originally my plan was just to draw it in black and white, and then I was like, no, he needs paint. So then we painted him, and that's where we are. If you are looking to do more of this kind of stuff in your bullet journal, and especially if you're maybe not like super into drawing, what I did is I just like on a piece of random paper, well, here, I'll tell you my whole process. First of all, when I'm planning out my bullet journal setups, I take a random piece of paper and I just draw a whole bunch of little boxes for all of the different spreads that I want to include, so I can kind of sketch them out like teeny tiny and just kind of decide like where I want things, what I want to include, and that kind of stuff. I'll also test out like colors that go together in case I'm not sure what colors I want to use, and in cases like this where I have a lot of drawing, I will also typically draw them. So I like didn't really know how to draw hummingbirds, so I just looked up some reference pictures on the internet and I just sat and like sketched hummingbirds in lots of different positions on my piece of paper. If you look up like line drawings of hummingbird, that's a little bit easier than if you look up like a full picture, so that might be something that makes it a little bit better. And I just sketched them out, and then I used like colored pencils to color them the way that I wanted them colored, so that way when I was doing it with paint, I could look and see like kind of my color reference essentially of where they were going to be. On this left side, I wrote, does it say live today moment? Live every moment, sorry. Can't even read my own handwriting from here. And then the blue says, what would this look like if it were fun? I added a piece of craft paper that's actually packing paper I got out of one of my Amazon packages because I'm out of my bullet journal craft paper. And I'm going to add something there, but I don't know what it is yet. So for right now, it's just blank and it will be filled out at some point. My plan this weekend is to really like sit and think and meditate about what we're going to do next year and what, you know, needs to go on this page and all that kind of stuff. I also left a little bit more white space so I can add more quotes, ideas, thoughts, that kind of stuff as well. Once I made sure that this first page was really, really dry, I went over it with a black fine liner just to, you know, make it a little more of like an illustrative vibe and just bring out all those little details. Before we flip over, here's a close-up of these first two pages. These are definitely self-indulgent and, you know, not necessarily the best, but I love them. And having this like focus page was really helpful. Last year I would look at it every single morning before I would go to do any of my planning. Now, not all the pages are going to be that intricate, especially like this one. So this next page is something I haven't had in a really long time. I've been bullet journaling since 2020, so this will be my 5th year bullet journaling, which just seems kind of wild. But I have not had this page in particular in a long time, and that's just a quote page. So a lot of times I love reading. I love, you know, just all the things. And so I wanted a place where I could just write down inspiring quotes that I come throughout the year. You know, obviously the last page had some quotes, but if I'd found those in July, I wouldn't have had anywhere to put them because that page will be full. So this is just quotes from books or movies or that I find on Pinterest that I just really like, and so I wanted somewhere to write them down. I'm adding just a little hummingbird. This time I am actually going to leave it black and white instead of coloring it. feel like it looks less like a hummingbird when it's not, you know, all the colors, but that's okay. And then this pen I'm using, apologies for using all of the pens from all of the sets, but this pen I'm using, or marker, is a dual tip brush pen from Primrosia, the same brand that made this bullet journal. And so one side is a brush tip, the other side is a fine liner, and I just use that really light gray, like a light tan would also work. And it just works to highlight every other line so that you can see things a little bit better. It just makes it easier to write. It gives it just a little something for now when it's not filled out yet, and so it makes it look a little bit nicer, which, you know, isn't really that important, but it makes me happy. So there we are. Next up, I'm going to my full page calendars. Last year, I was even considering going to a regular planner instead of my bullet journal because I just missed these full page calendars. Most bullet journalers will use, you know, little teeny tiny future logs with the little tiny calendars. And I just really missed having these really big ones where I could just write what I wanted to write all throughout it. And then I was like, Becca, you're making your own bullet journal. You can do whatever you want. So I made full page calendars and I loved them. So I'm bringing them back this year. I'm going to make these Dutch doors. So I'm cutting around a little bit on the top and the edge, and it just kind of makes all these pages go together. I'm also going to cut out little tabs so that way I have, I can easily flip to each of the different pages. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, Becca, you're going to show me 12 of these? No, I'm just going to show you the one, and then I will skip ahead so that you don't have to watch me do the same thing over and over. I love having a paintbrush to wipe away the erasers, by the way. Then I'm going to start numbering them. As I number them, I'm going to realize what you might have already realized and notice that I added a whole extra week because I forgot that I was going to have the calendar a little more up and then I was going to move it a little more down. So I ended up just pasting some of those cuts piece of bullet journal paper that I took off down at the bottom. This double-sided sticky tape is the best. I will link it down below. And it's not the prettiest option, but it did work, and that's all we are after for today. Okay? Listen, it is what it is. Sometimes you make mistakes. I am irritated that I made the mistake on January though, because it's the first page, which means that I'm going to see it every month of the year. Alright, so I skipped ahead a little bit so you didn't have to see that over and over, and now you can see each of the months. One thing I like doing is assigning each month a color, and that color varies based on basically my color scheme. And that way I will use that same color for the calendar. I'll use that color for my habit trackers later. And I don't know, I just like having a color for the month. And so I picked those you might have seen at the beginning of this calendar situation. And that's what I did each calendar in. And it's just, you know, for fun. Now I was going to leave this calendar plain because I figured, you know, oh, I have all this color because I have all these different, you know, colors for the month. But then I didn't. So here we are. Painting more of my little Mexican petunias. These are really easy to paint, by the way. I just used like a limey green color and just did kind of like a vine and then like leaves shooting off, and then I do usually add like a darker green in a few places to add just a little bit of shadow and a little bit of variance, because I feel like it gives it that like watercolor feel when you have, you know, more than one color going on. Out of those purple, you can see I haven't touched the purple with the green because I don't want it to smear, so I let the purple dry a little bit before I add these stems. And this time I'm adding a little yellow butterflies all over, and for these I'm literally just taking yellow and like scribbling essentially, almost like a triangle shape, and then I'll go back and add the little bodies and antennas for the butterflies to make them look more like butterflies a little bit later. I sketched the 2025 off screen so that way you wouldn't have to see me sketch it and then also color it. But again, always recommend sketching it because otherwise I would have messed it up. And now, should I have sketched it, realized that I was going to run into the calendar and moved it over? Yes. Did I do that? No. So I just let it go behind the calendar, and you know what? It was fine. Then I added some of these every other line highlights to the empty parts of these calendars, because my thought was that I could use it as like notes or to-dos. That way, if we're, not at July, but I'm thinking, oh, hey, in July I might want to do this thing, I can write it in those spots. Those really glaring mistakes are just really making it for me. Is that how 2025 is going to go? We shall see. Now, this page, or pages, this set of pages, is the last of the like really intricate decorative things. After this, things get a lot more simple. I tend to put a lot more work into pages that I find, I use a lot, that I find more important. And the pages coming soon after this will be a lot of like writing, brainstorming, that kind of stuff, where it just doesn't need to be as pretty. But this page is my goals page, and so I want it to be pretty because I want to look at it every single day. So here's where I'm going to write down all of my like plans and goals for this year and refer to them again every single day. I usually will get my breakfast, and I'll sit down and I read my Bible, drink my coffee. After you read my Bible, I open up my bullet journal and I start at the front and I flip through every page so that way I can keep all the stuff that's in here front of mind. So that's what I'm doing, and I just want to make it pretty. So we've got some more of those Mexican petunias going on. This time I just have the green, and then I'm adding my hummingbird in here. Love these hummingbirds. They're just so fun. I painted a lot of hummingbirds last year, and so I just really have enjoyed bringing them in. I also cut off part of the right side to make that Dutch door situation again, so that I make almost like a little booklet going on with all of the things that I want to write. So that's where I'll put my actual goals. I am checking out my colors here on just a scrap piece of paper. And you'll notice when I cut, I leave like a tiny bit close to the binding. I find that just makes it a lot stronger than if you cut it all the way at the binding. It's a lot more likely to pull apart. And since I'm going to be using this for the whole year, yes, the whole year, not just 6 months, I really need to make sure that I can use it the whole year. It is not going to fall apart. With the blue brush pen, I wrote long term on the left. So on that spot, I'm going to put like goals that are things I want to do, like it says, in the long term, but they're not necessarily things I'm doing right now. On the right, I have this year. Those are obviously things that I'm going to be working on this year. And I added those every second line highlights to make it, just look nice. This time I decided to write the title in purple, and I think I like it a lot better. I kind of wish I hadn't done black with all the other ones. Although that being said, I'm about to write a quote over in that empty spot in purple, and I kind of wish that I had written it in black. But, it is what it is. This quote is by Stephen Covey, and it says, "Only the disciplined are truly free. The undisciplined are slaves to something." I don't have it in front of me, but we're about to find out. The undisciplined are slaves to, I can't see. Moods. I think it's moods, passions, and you can probably see better than I can. Apologies. Moods, somethings, and passions. Appetites and passions. There we go. Okay, so that's the quote. Yeah, anyway, so on that first page of this little booklet situation, I'm going to write all of my goals. So I will write down like just the short, like this is the goal, this is the goal, this is the goal. On these pages, I go into a lot more detail where I can really spell things out a lot better. So why this goal is important. If you don't have that connection, you're just not going to hit them because you won't care. And then details and plans. So that's where I can write down like, okay, if I want to make X amount of money, I'm going to do that by making these products, by making these videos. Like those kind of things is what I'm going to write there, is the actual like how I'm going to achieve that goal. In the back, I'm adding something that I didn't have last year, but I had the year before and I really missed it. And that is the tentative 5-year plan, although I think I ended up with 6 years, so apologies. Well, it's like this year plus 5 in the future. And so here is just like really quick, just like jotting down like, okay, here are things I want to do this year. Here are things I want to do next year. Here are things I want to do the next year, and things like that. And so in each one, I'll write down what age I will turn that year, and just kind of ideas of like, you know, when do I want to maybe buy a new house? When do I want to, I have like a big trip planned for one of those years, and things like that. And obviously it's tentative. I don't really know what's going to happen in 2030, but it's just where I can write down ideas of like, hey, this might be a good time to, you know, do this. This might be a good time to do this, and we shall see. Now, the good news is things are about to get a lot more simple after we finish with this page. The next pages are just a lot more writing and a lot less pretty. Cool. So next up, I have, this page I'm leaving blank. This is going to be my vision board. I'm going to cut out like pictures and stuff and add them to this page. So I don't have anything yet. I'm just writing the vision board title and making a little border. And on this page, we're getting into the quarters. So I don't think I'm going to actually plan quarterly this year. I have some like tentative ideas, but I like having this page where I can just kind of put things down where they need to go. So if I'm like, oh, I need to work on this project, but it's not something I need to do now, I can assign it to a month or a quarter throughout the year. This is especially helpful if you are someone who creates content or creates like products, and especially if you create seasonal products. So I sell teaching resources online. I sell elementary music teaching resources. That's like my main thing. And then I have some other things kind of going off the side, but that's like my main thing. And so if I'm like, oh, I want to, you know, create this summer resource, I don't necessarily need to do that in January, but I do need to do it pretty soon. And so that way I can like write it down and assign it to a month. And that's really helpful, so I can just kind of keep on top of things. You definitely don't have to do that, but I find it helpful to just have this quick little overview of the whole year. Now you can see what happens when you don't sketch things out and you don't count any of the lines, because here I am making things all sorts of wonky with not having the same amount of spaces in the boxes, not counting anything. You know what? It's fine, because after today, I'm the only one who's going to be looking at this. These pages look better than the last 2 pages. Next up, we're making just like brainstorming pages for each of the different business areas that I have. So for this one, I'm just adding a little hummingbird and a little border. So I have Becca's Music Room is where I sell my music resources. Becca's Bible Class is where I sell my like Sunday school teaching resources. Becca Davis Vlogs is this YouTube channel here. So any ideas I have for videos I want to see, if you have ideas for videos you'd like to see, let me know. And then Becca's Teacherpreneur Academy is what I, in my head, consider to be where I help people sell their teaching resources. Those pages I basically just left blank because the idea is that I will go through and add ideas for, you know, videos and blog posts and products that I want to make and that kind of stuff. It's just like a brainstorming page. Now here, I actually, look at me counting those dots. I am actually creating some other trackers that are also going to be left mostly blank. So on this page, I have crafts, and so I'm going to split this into 3 different boxes. One is paintings, one is Cricut, and then the other one's just going to say other. And this is where I will write down ideas I have for things I want to do. So if I have a painting that I want to paint, and I don't have time to paint it, you know, ASAP, I can write it down here, and then that way when I'm like, oh, I want to paint something, what should I paint? I can go back and look at it. Or if I'm like, oh, I want to make, you know, a Valentine's Day Cricut banner situation, I can write that here, and then I have that as an option to go back to. So it's just like ideas of things that I might want to do. I always find the hardest thing is coming up with ideas in the moment. So if you have an idea and you can write it down, then later on you can refer back to it and life will be a lot easier. On the other side, I have a lot that says classes. I joined Skillshare this year. This video is not sponsored. I know they sponsor everyone on the internet, but this video is not sponsored. But I joined Skillshare this year, which is like an online course. It's like YouTube, but for courses. You do have to pay for it, but it's already been really worth it for me. I've taken a lot of things. So here I just wanted to keep track of classes that I am taking or would like to take. So the top one says painting, the middle one says digital art, because I really want to learn how to use like Procreate and draw on my iPad and stuff like that. And the other one says other, because, you know, sometimes we just have other things to do. On this page, I'm doing piano tracking. I play piano not very well, and so I wanted to have a place where I can keep track of things that I'm learning to play. And so this one's really, really simple because I don't know exactly what I need. I'm just going to put classical on the top part and then other on the other part, because I, you know, might learn some Disney songs or some Christmas songs or things like that. But mostly I've been learning classical piano pieces, and I'll just write them down, and then in that purple strip I can check them off when I feel that I have like proficiently learned them. And on the other side I have tap, because I am taking a tap dance course, and so I just wanted somewhere to, you know, write down tap dances. I don't know. That's I don't know. Anyway, we finally reached the end of the portion that I'm going to share with you. I actually have more spreads that I will be doing on my own, but listen, I had to finish this video at some point, so this is the point at which I decided to finish. The other pages also are a lot less interesting. They're a lot more of like those last ones where it's just very simple. So here are more of the fun pages. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I would love to know if you are a bullet journal person, what kind of like theme you're going for this year, and if you have any like painting bullet journal people that you like watching, let me know those down below in the comments, because I need some new people. My favorite person doesn't do bullet journaling anymore, and all my other people are more like crafters, which I love, but it's not my style, obviously. So thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way down here till the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.